Alright, let's get this over with. Okay, so I'm going to start this video with one quick correction. Last video I talked a lot about how Livia uses her sword, her fencing sword. And I did quickly look through because something I said didn't sound right. And I will admit a slight error on my fault here. Livia, I don't think ever actually calls it fencing. I think I got fencing because they mentioned later another young man that they want her to marry also does fencing. So I do want to apologize for that. So I did make a big fuss out of the fact that she was doing fencing in a specific scene where it never actually specifically said she was fencing. So I'm going to go ahead and apologize for that real quick. That is my error. I will also say that I still kind of fault the book for that mistake because the fact that the sword is called a zinger, not what the type of sword it is, and the fact that it's clearly trying to emulate a more French, Victorian-esque society, fencing was the automatic thing you would go to. So if they wanted us to draw the parallel that she's learning to be a cool katana master, and also the way she uses the sword, because she often points it at people, like there's a tip at the end. And if you've seen katanas, yeah, you point, but that's not how you threaten people with a katana. It's dramatic and shows and stuff, but that's not actually how katanas work. Stabbing with a katana isn't really something you should be doing. But anyways, yeah, I just want to make a quick comment there and correct myself. So let's go ahead and continue on. So we left off on chapter 12. Now, I left off here because this is basically when we finally hit the immediate halfway point. Now, I know this is only chapter 12 and there's 44 chapters in this book, but this is effectively just the halfway point of the book. This is where Livia goes through her emergence ball. She reminisces about Micah some more. We see her going through the motions of what's expected to her before she runs into Kane, who happens to be at her dance. Quick reminder for those of you who don't remember my last review, Kane is Lex's best friend from the academy days. And right before they were separated with their different assignments, Kane planted a kiss on Lex because he didn't want his first kiss to go to someone he doesn't care about at all. Very notable here. So anyway, she runs into Kane during a courtship dance. He says something that intrigues her, but disappears without a trace for like a couple hours afterwards. So, in frustration, she goes outside to play with a horse and get dirty like a rebel. Runs into Kane again in the stables. For some reason has become so enraptured with the man who is Kane that she kisses him despite he has clear anxiety over something, clear emotional distress over something. Finds out that he was actually trying to poison her, and then Kane is promptly beaten to near death by the PCF, who show up the second she realizes what's going on, and dragged away. There are a lot of things to talk about in this chapter. Part of the reason I also paused it there. First, I'm gonna go ahead and go back to something I mentioned in my last review, or the last section of this review. And I mentioned how Micah, the childhood bully of Livia here, I was sure she was going to be revealed to have a crush on Livia. And this chapter really, really explains why. When I say she reminisces about Micah, it's weird the examples she chooses. For example, this one right here, page 153. Where Micah is telling a story to her friends about this girl who graduated through an academy but, fell. They told the same few stories, growing more horrific with each retelling, but always came back to their favorite, the girl who fell. According to Micah, happened 2 debut cycles ago. 6'2" and from excellent genetic stock, graced with delightful bone structure and pleasant manner, she collapsed on the platform, she told them, and was lowered immediately. Slapped her until she regained her consciousness, lifted right back up. She finished the rotation, but never once ceased her incessant sobbing. Turning and turning, all eyes on her, tears streaked down her face. Couldn't even wipe her running nose for fear of breaking the poses. In the end, Micah said, voice bursting with foreboding, the only cohabitant available was under 6 feet. And even worse, he secretly preferred the company of other young men to her own. Now she is left alone on her estate as he spends his days on a faraway one, frolicking away the time with another young man of similar interests. In the old world, before the great catastrophe, this kind of life choice was considered acceptable. You were free to love who you pleased and spend your life with the mate of your choosing. And yet, somehow, we have regressed in Indra because of the IHC's pursuit of perfecting our population through controlled procreation. For all the warnings of the world before the great catastrophe, I often question whether they were more evolved than us in some capacities. Now, note there. The story she tells is supposed to be about this girl who falls from grace, and because of it, her life is ruined in their eyes. But the focus of the narrative and the focus that Livia takes is on the fact that Micah likes telling the story where it's shameful to be gay. Further that more, there's another one here on page 163, and this is what really sold me, apart from everything else, that Micah seems to have a crush on Livia. Because I'm suddenly dizzy, long off the platform, and yet everything once again is spinning. I fear I might faint. If I faint, at least I've been taught how to react. Soon I will be a cautionary tale told during pleasant interaction. That's when I see Micah, not socializing or engaging in interaction, pleasant or otherwise. Simply staring at me from the far left side of the table. Surely that's a sign of rudeness. And you combine that with the story I told you last time when I told you last time during my review, where Micah convinces her to go slip off somewhere hidden so they can both cut their thumbs and leave bloody fingerprints in their sashes so they'll forever be linked. Or the fact that for the first few years that they knew each other, her and Micah were basically best friends. Even if she didn't necessarily like how Micah acted, Micah seemed to really like her, often pushing kids aside so she could sit next to her, or commenting on how beautiful Livia is. So there's a lot here that would make you think, so the twist is going to be Micah had a crush on Livia, and the reason she becomes so hostile and nasty to Livia over the years is the society forced her to conform to what they believe. Homosexuality is wrong. Therefore, Micah, who sees herself as a proper young woman, must be thinking so there's something wrong with Livia. I need to get her away from me because she's making me think perverse thoughts. And that's why she can't ever be accepted. But, no. The reason this doesn't work is because, one, this is literally the last time we see Micah in this entire book. And two, Livia has empathetic powers. She knows what people are feeling. And throughout this, she never really hints that there's something deeper to Micah's hate of her other than just hate. And I want to say this isn't just me being one of those shippers, you know? Two characters have some kind of disconnect with... Two characters have a hostile relationship with each other. So clearly that just must be unresolved tension between the two of them, and clearly they're gay for each other. You know, like most shippers are. Like most shippers seem to think any interaction in any form of media is. I kid. I ship a lot of things too. I promise that isn't hate. But no, I will say that when it comes to Cassina, the bully for Lex, I genuinely believe that Cassina hates Lex. So when you have all these things pointing to Micah liking Livia, but you can also write a bully character where I'm like, yeah, no, there's no doubt this person just hates this person. I'm led to think this is at least somewhat intentional, right? But no, nothing is done with this. Micah is literally just there to feel the same. This character was mean to me because they didn't think I was fit for their society. Wait. So another thing I want to talk about here, I mentioned I would talk about later in the earlier review, the spinning platform thing. First of all, during this section, Livia talks about how she has to stay on the spinning platform and during the emergence ball, and how difficult it is for her to hold all these poses, and how she's never had an audience before while doing this, and all these things and why it's so hard to do this, but she manages to get through it because that's her uphill battle. Except, one, that doesn't make logical sense based on the story you've been presented. The first thing she aced this thing the very first time she ever did it. And you would think the implication there is that they continue to do it because none of the other girls aced it. So they would have to continue to train this in order to make sure all of them could do it. And she says they never did it with poses, but why not? Because the whole point of this is you go up there and you keep this pose while this platform is spinning. So why wouldn't they practice poses? And furthermore, she did have an audience during that time. It just was smaller, but it was definitely much more hostile, considering apparently every single person in that class, including the teacher, didn't like her. Everything she says in this scene is wrong. But the second thing I want to talk about is, why is this spinning platform even part of the tradition? This is kind of one of those things where it's like, I don't get it. It's another one of those ham-fisted, clearly women in this society are seen only as objects, so they must stand on a spinning platform so they look like beautiful dolls for the men to admire. I get what they're going for. But again, it has to make sense within the world. You want telling a cautionary tale with this. You want a Handmaid's Tale. You want anything like that. And hell, even Handmaid's Tale at least justifies why the world is the way it is. And it doesn't just, haha, look at this. Look, everything's bad now. So why is there this spinning platform? What is the point of showing this off? Why is it so important they do it that someone who literally passes out because of the G-forces literally loses all chance to marry someone? Like, in what scenario is someone like, oh, well, she passed out while holding a pose on a platform that spins perilously above everyone. Clearly, that is not marriage material. That doesn't even make sense with the historical area they're clearly emulating in the higher Indian society. So,
you did this for what?
Why not?
Why?
Why not?
Why though?
And apart from that, the naming convention, which again seriously pisses me off. Nothing much else to say on this chapter. I do want to comment on this real quick. So one of the comments I made initially when Kane and Livia kissed was this. So even though I'm positive that they're twins, Kane is moving on from Lex to Livia startlingly fast. And his lack of acknowledgement of their similar appearance is crazier, if I am right. Also, Kane is just being creepy in this scene. I don't understand why Livia is falling for him. So, I put that out there, and then I ultimately decided to erase it when it was revealed that he was trying to poison her, because, so, he didn't really want to kiss her, he was just trying to get close to her and then poisoned her. So, yeah, it makes sense. Keep that in mind. Chapter 13. Now, Chapter 13 is a short chapter, but it's incredibly confusing plot-wise. The basics of it is that Lex watches a modified version of the memory of the emergence ball that we see, starting from when Kane and Livia meet each other in the stables, and it makes it look like Livia is responsible for unjustly persecuting Kane. And Cassina seemingly offers an alliance and to go and help the shared crush after Lex just beats the shit out of her. For no reason. Like, even in the story, it's acknowledged. But mind you, we are watching this from the first-person point of view, so we know what Lex believes in this moment. And for no reason whatsoever, she just beats the shit out of Cassina, even though she believes what Cassina is saying. And then gets mad when Cassina's snarky to her at it. I'm like, you kind of gotta have to give her that. You literally are threatening to break her arm because she came to you for help for someone you both like. Anyways, let's actually go into talking about the points here. So, this chapter could have worked if it was going for the dramatic irony of things. It shows a perfect example of when you can use the dual first-person POV. Lex, we already know what really happened, but Lex doesn't know that Kane was there to kill Livia. So she obviously assumes Livia is maybe this vindictive woman who Kane spurned because clearly he's in love with Lex, and she retaliated against him, which caused the PCF to beat him near death. Livia, however, would know the real truth, that Kane was sent to kill her and backed out last second, and that she did her best to mitigate the attack on him only to be ignored. So when the two are sent against each other, we, as an audience member, knows there's dramatic irony there. But then it's ruined because Cassina just says this. I get up off her and she rolls away, massaging her throat. She pulls herself to standing and straightens her uniform. I couldn't find out much, even in security. He was sent to assassinate her, but I'm not sure why. He was the perfect choice, really, she says, regaining her crustiness. They had him on the construction rigs with proper air rights authority doing surveillance. He was monitoring this island for weeks. Hear me out. Now Lex knows Kane was sent there to murder somebody. So, right away, this should change Lex's thinking. Livia is no longer responsible for what happened to Kane. Clearly the government is, because they sent him in to assassinate her, and something went wrong, so they beat the crap out of him and dragged him off. No matter how you look at it, there was in no way Livia should be responsible for the scenario. Even if she did attack Kane, it would be because he was sent there to kill her. And yet, Lex seems to completely forget that this confirmation even happened over the next few pages of the book. She's constantly talking about how Livia was responsible for what happened to Kane. How Kane was clearly just there and she for some reason attacked him, that kind of bullshit. And it's even dumber in that she assumes Livia would know where they took Kane, but doesn't question that for Cassina. Cassina tries to excuse it, well, I don't have the clearance for that, but she clearly has the clearance to take his memory, and was able to bring you the extracts from that memory. So immediately right away, if Cassina's claiming they don't know where they're holding Kane, but is able to take his memory chip and bring it to you, clearly she's lying to you. That is like the most obvious thing ever. But another thing is, Lex sees the memories are clearly altered and never questions it. She's yelling now, ferocious, not so great with rejection, I guess. Now she's pulling back her arm. Everything goes dim. I figure some glitch is gonna boot me out, but then there's a flash and the girl's holding Kane in her outstretched arms, like he isn't worthy of her touch. Looks down on him with disgust. His eyes are closed and lifeless, and that's when the PCF officers surround Kane and start kicking his already broken body. They don't touch her. I can't either. Not right now, but she's out there somewhere. Are they just gonna pummel him until he's dead? In some senses, you could say, oh, okay, maybe that flash was Kane's memory briefly shutting off when she attacked him. But then you combine that with the knowledge that he was sent there to assassinate her by the PCF, and you think, wait a minute. If he was sent there by the PCF to assassinate her, why am I getting an altered version of his memory? Why the PCF beat him near death? And why is he currently being held as a prisoner? None of that should make sense if he was there by their orders. And again, the fact that he tried to kill Livia should pretty much absolve her of almost everything that happened. Again, just remove this one line and the rest of the scene would make sense. Some final complaints. Once more, we're introduced to an integral part of the world that only now exists because it's relevant to the character's active goal. We're introduced to the Riggers, the last true sky outlaws of Indra. Except they're just construction workers. But they play a vital part in the next few parts of the book, so it's a little annoying that they are just now being introduced. So, nothing new for this book. There's also the big plot hole of the fact that Cassina has been part of the PCF about as long as Lex has been part of the Rock Bottom Patrol, which the book tells us is 2 weeks, but is actually about 3 weeks, give or take a few days. Actually, no, it can't even be give or take a few days, because it would be exactly, in the book's mind, exactly 2 weeks, because she's there to meet Kane. So, why does she have all these clearances as a rookie? Why can't she get the altered memory, but not know where Kane is, which is a lot less valuable of an information? Doesn't make sense when you think about it. Chapter 14. Lex undergoes the plan to get to Livia. This includes impersonating Cassina at various clearance checks and then getting hold of a PCF cruiser to fly through the sky. There's really not much else to say here. As far as complaints go, first of all, a plot hole. How does Lex know how to fly a cruiser? Everything we've seen from her so far indicates that Indra is a highly restrictive society, especially when it comes to information. Livia tells us that you have to get petition to get certain information from the archive, even when it's just as simple as memories or genetics research or something like that, which heavily restricts that information and based entirely on your social status in life. And they'll also just restrict information for the hell of it. For example, they won't give Lex any of her father's research, despite repeatedly asking for it, and despite the fact that numerous characters say you should be entitled to it because it is your family's legacy. And this is a plot hole because Lex flat out tells us this isn't part of her training. But she somehow gets a hold of enough flight simulations and puts enough time in them to know how to fly without issue. Which would have had to happen as a cadet because, again, she's only been part of the Rock Bottom Patrol for 3 weeks. I refuse to believe that was 2 weeks. But that makes it even more unlikely she would get those sims because, one, she literally abandons her post on the first day she's an official member of the Rock Bottom Patrol. And second, when would she have had time to learn how to fly? She's been part of the Rock Bottom Patrol for 3 weeks. One of those weeks was spent learning how to use all the various gadgets they're given. And all the other weeks, she's told to basically sit in the corner and watch people do their jobs. So, at what point is she ever given the chance to learn how to fly on these flight sims? It doesn't make sense when you think about it. Nothing about this book makes sense the more you think about it. So let's go ahead and move on to chapter 15. So about now, you'll notice that the chapters are getting very short. And that's because they are. While the previous parts of the book had chapters that were about 20 to 30 pages long at minimum, for the rest of the book, it'll be a surprise if the chapters get past 6 pages. And that's how you suddenly realize that's why this book has 44 chapters. It's not because they had 44 chapters with the content. It's because they wrote out 12 chapters with the content and realized, oh, if we only have 15 chapters in our book, no one's going to read it. So they just decided to do 3 or 4 pages per chapter at this point, with the occasional 10-page chapter throughout. So you'll be noticing that I'll be clumping chapters together the further on we get in, because simply put, there's just nothing happening in that one chapter that's worth dedicating a whole section to. But this chapter really, it kind of showcases my point. We go back to Livia. She's witnessing the aftermath of the assassination attempt, which somehow has ruined her social graces and her reputation. She keeps trying to learn about what happened to Kane, but getting rebuffed. And the chapter basically ends when she sees Lex flying towards her. Complaints, I guess, are relatively light for this chapter. First, we learn that Livia has no idea what a horizon is. I mean, listen to this. The surprises life has to offer, she adds cheerily. And now we must move forward to discover exciting new horizons. There are no horizons in the air, of course. But those are pesky details, and she focused on the much larger task, saving me from complete ruin. So, I'm hoping they mean it metaphorically, because obviously a horizon has to exist. For those of you who don't know, horizon is basically the thing that off in the distance with it, just that line. Whenever you see a picture, you just know that line in the middle of the thing where it starts you the perspective. Without that horizon, there's no perspective. Again, it might be a metaphor, but the way it's worded, it's not. In any case, because even metaphorically, there would be horizons. It's just not the horizon you want. Second is, we see the return of the zingers that she loves to use, because they did a double zinger at this point. The most powerful of which, Hub Suds, are a vision-inducing, mind-altering beverage that said you can smell the vomit from several islands away. At least, according to the rumors. At this point, I would take either over Helix. Again, what the zingers, clunky, annoying. Stop it. The zingers don't work, one, when you use them en masse like this, and two, it's not needed. Thirdly, we got a problem. Now, I mark this as a plot hole, but it's mostly because I just don't get how Indra society works. Livia's attacked, so she becomes ostracized. And like I said, I know this is probably a comment on the patriarchal nature of modern celebrity culture, and it's trying to draw a direct parallel from that to this book, where something bad happens to a female, so automatically she's blamed. I don't think the Kardashians thought about it that much, to be honest, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. But it's a very clunky and poor way to do it. And second, it would make more sense if Livia was talking about how she's being ostracized because the rumors about it. After all, she was found with barefoot, with a ruffled dress, and her hair was out, and she was covered in mud. So it would make more sense that the rumors that was circulating about what happened was she was seduced by this assassin because she's such a hussy, and not just because she was attacked. The book puts emphasis on the fact that she's ostracized because she was attacked, not because of anything else. So it makes me wonder, why? So for my fourth complaint about this small chapter, so you remember how I mentioned that Lex and Livia are very distinct from each other because Lex is basically an angry, raving bitch? This is the part where Livia kind of gets that too. She doesn't really have anger behind it. She's more of a haughty angry, where she looks down on everyone. But for some reason, at this point, it's just like, let's amp up the fact that Livia is kind of a bitch too in this book. And it definitely gets worse later on. Don't get me wrong. I'll get into that again. Oh, hey, you guys knocked this down. So, but like I say that because she basically almost ends the chapter with this. She doesn't end the chapter. She gets near the end of the chapter, but she comments on this after ruminating the fact that she's being unfairly ostracized by society for something out of her control. So she says something like this. Marius, of course, won't accept my fate so willingly. A young man with a small estate, she tells me distractedly. Looks promising. His pastime is fencing. I have been told that he has a rather nice disposition. Nice, I know, means a stutter, or a chronic odor, or even a more serious deficiency. But even those young men won't agree to meet. Avoiding me like a genetic flaw. Your name and island are all you have, and one doesn't stand without the other. But, one, that's such an incredibly judgy thing to say for someone who is also being unfairly judged. Like, I get maybe the chronic odor. That's something that theoretically most people can control. I know there are certain disorders out there where you can't control it. But bad odor, yeah, okay, I can get that. Someone who doesn't bathe, you don't really want to hang around that person. A stutter is not really something you can control. So the use of that as a reason not to marry somebody is just kind of raises my hackles a little in this scene. And it's just like, wow, kind of a bitch, ain't ya? Next is chapter 16 and 17. Chapter 16 is only 2 pages long. So the best way to sum up both of these chapters is that Lex and Livia finally meet in the book. Most of the length of these 2 chapters is summed up as an extended fight scene. This fight scene is almost entirely described by Lex uses her technology to gain an upper hand. Livia stumbles a bit before adapting. Lex has to defend against Livia. Then Lex uses her technology to gain an upper hand. Livia stumbles a bit before adapting. Lex then has to defend against Livia. Rinse and repeat for at least 4 more times. However, it's when these two arrive at an impasse, having each other supposedly at a scenario where either one can end the other, and it's all about who moves first, they realize that they share something in their eyes. And just as they're about to discuss it, it ends with the obvious conclusion that Cassina and the PCF have set up Lex. So let's go ahead and move on to the complaints, of which there are many. First, as I mentioned before, Lex continues to forget that Kane was confirmed to have tried to assassinate Livia, so she just defaults back to Livia being the one who attacked Kane for some reason. But the fight scene in this book sucks. Again, as I explained before, this fight basically just does the same thing over and over again. Here's a cool gadget. Parry, parry, parry. Haha, I got the hang of this. Stab, stab, stab. Oh no! Cool gadget. Haha, parry, parry, parry. That's basically it. The first reason it sucks is, one, you remember how often I complained in my last review about how we don't see any of Lex's training? This is kind of where it becomes the worst. Because she comes out with several of these gadgets. All of them feel like they were pulled right out of her ass because the authors need to give her an advantage. By the way, whichever of the Jenner siblings thinks of themselves as Lex should be very upset with the fact that the book basically says that they would get their ass whooped by the other sibling unless they had several advantages, and even then that's just to kind of give yourself an edge. So, but several of these gadgets just feel like they're pulled out of nowhere. You got the pacifiers, which I guess are tasers. Again, not well described. Then stun batons, which Liv just easily cuts through with ease with her sword, a metal sword. But then she feels like she has this belt who makes illusory duplicates of herself. And because of this, we never really get a grasp on what our characters can do or why they can do it, or how proficient they are at it, or how familiar they are with standard combat. At best, you can argue that we've seen Livia engage in a simulation fight with a samurai, but considering that's a simulation, it doesn't mean anything. It'd be like saying, again, it's a lot like saying Baby Doll from Sucker Punch is proficient in all the ways of fighting because she had dreams of fighting had dreams of fighting an orc army to disarm a bomb. We don't know the limits of what she can do based on these kinds of simulation. In fact, we see with Lex that she gets a major wound in her leg and she's able to brush it off with ease. And Kane can also somehow manifest what he wants to use. So there's no limit to these simulations. So in a way, they shouldn't have any bearing on how the fight progresses. But another issue with this is the choreography of the fights. And this will show up later too. The choreography of the fight scenes in this book don't make any sense. For example, let's pay attention to page 191 here. When they first meet up. Within seconds, I've got her in a stranglehold. She never saw me coming, doesn't struggle. Living this high up, she thinks she's above human pain. Nothing can harm you in the air, right? It could be blood rushing to my head, since there are no fumes up here. Only oxygen. Maybe it's just a stupid face. But for a moment, I forget what I came for. Focus. Just focus. Kane grinning at me on boosters, painting my laugh. Kane unconscious, battered like a busted-up zip ball. Tell me where they took him here, bitch, I growl. Tell me where they took Kane or I'm gonna... I don't get to finish. She's reached for something on her back. A sword, pointed at my neck. She's got a sword, and it's singing. You are in desperate need of an etiquette lesson. Alright, those of you who are paying attention, you would recognize that the scene went something like this. This, being Lex, snuck up behind Livia and got her in a chokehold. Cooperate with me here. Has her in a chokehold. Now, this text explicitly says the sword is on her back here. So, somehow, despite being in a chokehold, Lex unsheaths her sword, gets it into her hand in a comfortable way, and puts it to Liv's throat. Except, how? She has her in a chokehold, right? So, how does this blade on her back, where Livia would be standing to have her in a chokehold, come out of her back in a way to aim at her throat? See how it doesn't make sense? Thirdly, the stalemate doesn't make sense either, because, listen to this. She crawls over to the edge of the island. I can't catch my breath. I'll let her come to me. See just who will back down first. I brace for impact and square up, but she still hits me hard. We're locked together on the ground, getting ugly. I got 2 fingers on her neck, right on the artery. She's trying to choke me. It's working remarkably well. First of all, super clunky there. I press the spot a little harder. I press the spot a little harder. You'll be paralyzed, I say hoarsely. You'll never walk again, you hear me? You'll run out of air first, she says. We hold like this, bodies tensed, staring at each other. The book tries to present this as a true stalemate, as neither could for sure win before the other wins. So they both are hesitating before they commit to it. Except, that's not true. Lex isn't being choked out yet, because if she can talk, she's not being choked out properly. The fair warning, that's how you know if someone's really choking is... See, I'm pushing against as hard as I can, and I can barely talk. See that? So, if you can talk, you're really not being choked. Secondly, if she isn't exaggerating, Lex can basically just apply a few seconds of pressure to Livia, who will instantly paralyze. Whereas, even if Livia was properly choking her out, she would need a good 10 to 20 seconds to fully choke her out. meaning Lex would be able to paralyze her way faster than Liv could choke her. Thirdly, the choking can't be a proper sleeper hold, so that 10 to 20 seconds is the best guess here. So, because they're staring at each other in the eye, Liv has to be choking her like this. But, so it can't be like a true sleeper hold where you clamp down on the arteries and make him pass out. So, this doesn't make sense. Lex here has the biggest advantage. Lex won, but the story presents it as a stalemate. And finally, the PCF sucks. Like, again, I'm sure the plan that the PCF has, because we're never actually confirmed, was they sent Lex in to kill Olivia and then were planning to arrest her later on the crime. They show up way too soon, which means they basically blow the plan. Like, they're literally sitting there choking each other out as far as the PCF is concerned. And so they're like, oh, okay, it's getting ugly, let's go in there. But you want Livia dead, and you probably sent Lex to do the same, so why are you showing up when it seems like she's got Livia dead to rights? Chapters 18 through 22. So after the PCF shows up, Livia and Lex decide to team up to escape the island. The two of them flee through the island a bit looking for an escape route, before they eventually just decide to jump over the edge of the island into the riggings below. The two run into a pair of riggers who Kane knew when he was put with them undercover to watch Livia. And they literally serve as MacGuffins, as they act not only as a distraction to the PCF for no reason whatsoever, but they also give Lex a special magic plant that was never mentioned before, so that she can suddenly breathe better in the higher altitudes and won't pass out. Hep and the other guy die helping them before Lex and Liv steal a PCF cruiser and head off to the Indra City Hall, ready to save Kane together. So, chapters 18 through 19 are relatively short on problems. Both only go for about 3 or 4 pages, so they aren't really long enough to create plot holes or problems. At most, it's clunky in a few places. Chapter 20 is about what... I just noticed that. Chapter 20 is about where things get to be funky. Chapter 20 opens up with a sentence I think was supposed to be at the end of Chapter 19, but because Chapter 19 was in Lex's POV and Chapter 20 is in Liv's, it's just slapped on there without any care. It's about when they decide to have jumped off, by the way. For the first second, you fall gently. My dress billows out around me. Then it snaps up and I can barely see. The world goes white. Now see, if that was at the end of a paragraph, that would make sense, because at least it gives you that slight tension, because, oh, okay, are they going to survive the fall? I mean, of course they're going to fucking survive the fall, but are they going to survive the fall? You can at least believe there's some tension. But it's at the start of the paragraph, so there is no tension. It's not like anyone has ever opened up a book and said, I'll just read the first 2 sentences of one paragraph, then I'll stop for the night.
Okay, 1 sentence down, already compelling. 5 layers of wool and oilskin enclosed him.
More importantly, though, Chapter 20 introduces the most blatant examples of an ass pull in this work ever. Page 216 to 217 here. She quiets suddenly. Hep drops to his knees and is rooting in the dirt. Here we go, he says, removing several orange roots still caked in earth. He holds them out for her. Something to catch your breath? This isn't some tea party. Every time you breathe, you wheeze. She's from the islands, but you're most definitely not. He takes a bite out of the root with a loud snap. None of us living here are from anywhere even remotely above ground. So we eat these. They used to grow carrots in the old world, but my own hybrid helps regulate oxygen in the blood. Then he smiles at us, teeth neon green. Boosters, Lex says. Try one, Hep says. All natural. Plus, they'll help you escape from whatever it is you're escaping from. I take one, and Lex does too. I brush away the dirt, and a few seconds after my first bite, I feel marginally stronger. Lex won't admit it, but I can feel her changing disposition. With her changing moods, she's not a lot of fun to be around. Thank you, I say. He reaches into a pocket and removes a small bottle, which he presses into my hand. It's filled with capsules. I've dried them and powdered them too, so it's a nice blend. You hold on to these. First of all, not sure what the comparison to carrots were. I get that they're orange roots, but one, how does a rigger know what a carrot is? Again, if information is carefully restricted by Indra. And 2, How is he growing his own hybrid? Like with Lex, why doesn't he just have a breather that would give him more oxygen in environments where oxygen is scarce? This would make a lot more sense if he's just like, oh, here's a spare oxygen mask we got laying around because Kane hasn't shown up. Oh, then suddenly you're tying it into Kane not being there. What do you know? It works. Second, if he had these distilled in the pill format, why wouldn't he just start with that? Why make them chomp some carrot things, which in reality would take several minutes to digest, and not just give them the pills, which would take a little less time? I mean, thirdly, why does Livia eat one? Despite the fact that the book even outright addresses, oh, you're fine, you're used to this air. Here, you have some so you can breathe better. I'll take one. She's used to this atmospheric breathing, so she doesn't need to eat one as far as she's aware. I also really like this clunky comment here. So how do we get out of here? I ask. Is there a transporter? Sure, a big clunky rattler. Won't get you more than a few feet, though, before it starts losing altitude. Then you go express. He gestures down, down, down some more, and then makes the sound of an explosion. Just say he makes a motion of something falling out of the sky then exploding. It's a little more basic, but it sounds less stupid. Down, down, down some more, and then boom. Another thing that I eventually decided to just mark as a plot hole, because the story acknowledges the weirdness of it, but it might not be. I've maintained for years that just because a character makes a choice you don't agree with doesn't mean it's a plot hole. But at the same time, this kind of is a plot hole because it directly affects the plot in a way that isn't explained and doesn't make much sense if you think about it. There we go. It's not a plot hole that Star-Lord decides to punch Thanos in the face after finding out that he killed Gamora, because it's been long established that that's part of Star-Lord's personality. When he found out that his own father murdered his mother, the first thing he did was shoot his father several times.
Oh, that sounds bad.
So it's not out of the realm of the possibility to believe that Star-Lord would pull out his guns and just start hitting Thanos. I mean, it is a little stupid that he didn't try to shoot Thanos, but the president is set there where Quill can't control his emotional reactions when it comes to the loss of his loved ones. Here, Lex questions why the Riggers will sacrifice their lives just to give them a distraction, and the book kind of basically just agrees. It basically just says,
Good question.
Because there is no good reason they sacrifice their lives. They just do it because that's what the story needs them to do to get Lex and Liv out of the situation. Since both die by the end of the scene, we're not even going to get a retroactive explanation. So overall, Hep and his buddy I'm going to call him Dursley, exist purely as a plot device and nothing more. Here are some MacGuffin pills. Now let us go die so you can get out of here. So let's go ahead and go on to chapter 23 to 24. It's another 2 small chapters. Basically, the extent of it is Lex and Liv fly to Indra City Hall. Chapter 23 is all about Lex justifying to herself about going AWOL and trying to convince Livia to use the excuse that she was kidnapped so Livia could go home. Livia, of course, refuses because otherwise she wouldn't be part of the story. And then chapter 24 is basically Lex deciding to ram the crap through City Hall Gardens and infiltrate the tower. That's about it. In the end, there's really nothing wrong with this chapter. It's only like one comment where Lex's justification for turning traitor is saying that Indra turned on her first, which isn't the reason she turned traitor. She never acknowledges that point, and at several points later on, she tries to claim she's still a loyal soldier, but she never was a loyal soldier of the Rock Bottom Patrol. The literal first thing she does on the first day as an operative is go AWOL to rescue someone who tried to murder an heiress. And because she's an idiot, she doesn't think it was an actual assassination attempt. She thinks the heiress attacked him. So as far as she acts, Kane was legitimately jailed for a good reason, and she goes AWOL to go save him. And apart from that, we have another plot hole where Livia suddenly goes back to being terrified of air travel again. With that, with so little be said, you might be wondering, why didn't I just include Chapter 25 in this? Chapter 25. Despite being a rather short chapter, I'm going to go ahead and keep it separate because there's a lot wrong with this chapter. and a lot of problems that are indicative of wider problems within the book. But the chapter mostly is, while hurrying through City Hall, Livia saves Lex from a PCF goon, kills him, finds a picture of her dead father, and the two reveal that they have supernatural powers together. Let's go ahead and read this death scene here. This scene where she kills the PCF guy. This long hallway has dead people watching from hollow images mounted on the wall. By the way, the incredibly clunky way that puts it, she means there's just a bunch of pictures on the wall. The hallway has dead people watching from hollow images mounted on the wall. I can hear her footsteps right behind me. So she got over it. Too comfortable? What does that even mean? I know military operations and strategy. I don't do feelings. She's already slowing me down, already jeopardizing the mission. She sighs. What's your problem, I say, swinging around. She's got her humming sword pointed right at me. Not again. Really? I hurt your feelings that? I don't even get to finish before she's leaping towards me, her sword flashing in a silver arc, its melody acidic. There's a PCF soldier behind me. The Zinger cleaves his blaster in two. On the upswing, it cuts through his chest. His face is on the young side. It is full of shock and disappointment, and bears death in a no more of a dignified way than the rest of us. So this one makes even less sense than the fight scene before that I pointed out. See, you have Lex and Livia dancing along. All of a sudden, Livia is, doing her best to get on Lex's nerves, trying to talk her and tell her to be, more cautious. To the point where Livia spins on her and confronts her. But when she spins on her, she finds that Lex already has her sword out and pointed. Look, this is Lego. Oh, that's why. Already has her sword out and pointed at Livia. Now, obviously, this is to fake us out and think, oh, Livia's finally turned on Lex and is making her, making her move to kill it. But when Livia dives forward to strike, turns out there's someone right behind her, where she cuts through his rifle and then cuts his throat. Except it doesn't make sense, right? Because let's think about the logistics of the room here. So, it explicitly says they're in a hallway, right? Which means, you got forward and backward. There's no other room in here. We're not told about any branches off to the side. So, this guy who was behind Lex that she kills to save Lex, where was he hiding that Lex wouldn't have seen him? Because remember, they're walking down a hall, and then Liv turns around to find the sword already drawn on her. And then Liv jumps past her to slice this guy. And Lex is like, Jacuz, there's someone behind me. And it's like, how, though? But pay attention. Look, where could he have been that she wouldn't have seen this guy coming up on her, right? Again, this is a hallway. So he had to have been directly in front of her when she turned around. And if he wasn't, say he was off here hiding to the side and dived out the moment she turned around, why would Liv already have her sword drawn? Remember, Lex is supposed to be the one with superpowered perception. She's supposed to be able to hear and see things that most other people can't. So, if anyone should have heard this guy running around the corner, it should have been Lex, not Liv. So, you see why this little scene here doesn't make any sense. And it's just kind of one of those... Let's move on to the second thing. This is a more wider problem within the book. And in fact, there's only one point where I can say that's the exception to the rule. But one of the things that becomes grossly apparent in this book is that it just wants to skip the emotional moments, which only works to its detriment. Livia kills someone and is able to look past it, focus on her mission, while Lex is the one who seems shooken up by it. but we tell the scene from Liv's point of view. We don't see Lex responding to the death of this kid who she might have been training with in any meaningful way, because we immediately cut away from her point of view to be in Liv's point of view. And Liv's point of view is literally like, I killed a man. Oh well, it needed to be done. So it makes no sense, and it also doesn't make any sense to me that the battle-hardened soldier is shooken up by death while the spoiled heiress isn't. Just, it doesn't connect logically to me in this scene. I know everyone reacts to death differently in real life, and you never truly know how you're going to react to it until it happens to you. But at the same time, I don't want to think that a battle-hardened soldier who's been exposed to death for years, even before she was part of the military, would suddenly be like, someone died in front of me. Oh my god, that could have been me. But then Liv sees a picture of her father. And instead of showing us the emotion Liv goes through in these moments, the book just hard cuts to Lex reacting to Liv having an emotional moment. So instead of showing us the emotions that Liv has when she sees her father for the first time in years, sees his portrait, we just hard cut to Lex, who has no emotional attachment to the man, just like, huh, she seems to know that guy. This also happened earlier in the scenes when she first went topside, in that the book flat out mentions Lex pauses for a moment because it's literally the first time she's ever been out of a cave. And the book basically is like, oh my god, it's so pretty. I need to focus. And that's the extent of the emotional moment. The story wants to casually skip all these emotions when the story would have just been enhanced by showing it. It almost feels like these are inconvenient to have. Like, oh, they're emotional here. They're not stone statues, but I also don't want to tell you what they're feeling, so we're just going to go ahead and skip past that, because that'll take too much time. Finally, the third problem, their powers. So I bring this up because this is when the two finally reveal that they have powers to each other and they relate to each other. Brief moment. Except this also just kind of brings to mind that their powers are very terrible and they feel like last minute decisions added on. Much like a character that when you watch a show you're like, why does this character doesn't feel like he meshes? Because you realize, oh, that character was added last minute to the script, like in Spider-Man 3, Venom. If for those of you who don't know, in Spider-Man 3, Eddie Brock's Venom at Topher Grace, that's who he was. Topher Grace's Venom character wasn't actually supposed to be in the film. Instead, he was replaced. He was a replacement for a character, the Vulture. So that's why Eddie Brock in the film as Venom doesn't seem to have nearly the same amount of stage presence as the other two villains, because he wasn't originally intended to be in that film. The story wasn't written with him in mind, and he was shoved in later. But let's go more into the fact that these powers I say this because I honestly forgot Lex even had powers for good portions of this book. It very rarely ever references the fact that Lex has enhanced perception abilities, which is better smell, better sight, and better hearing. In fact, it gets to a point even after this that I forget she has this, and then I'm like, oh, yeah, she has superpowers. Okay. Because they never once help her. They're never really used to a way that makes you feel like she has powers. Oh, she can see in the dark. Big whoop. Oh, she responds to someone getting a call that no one else can hear, but for some... I'll get to that later. Oh, she can hear the electrical discharges on stuff in a sports game that she doesn't even end up winning. Again, they're not implemented well at all. So you basically forget they have them for a large portion of the book. This also extends to Livia's powers. Livia's powers basically don't exist for the majority of this book, up until her and Lex meet. And then suddenly she's able to read people as easily as if she's reading their mind. Like, don't get me wrong, there are a couple small sections here and there where they're like, I felt the anger rolling off them. But at the same time, in those moments, you don't feel that's an extrasensory power she's developing. You just feel she's commenting on how obviously someone hates her. Actually, I'm going to go on and say this. Again, keep in mind. But these powers will eventually make her go on and look like a much worse person in comparison. Look at this dog. He looks so comfy. Now, ironically, there was a way that this could have worked. If you were going for sort of a ironic statement where if Lex had had Liv's powers and Liv had had Lex's powers, their lives would have been extraordinarily easier, as a sort of cosmic injustice when their parents decided which of the two to get rid of. As Lex would be able to understand the emotions of the people around her a lot better, while Liv would have been much more aware of the people around her. You know, able to tell when someone's coming, able to tell when she's making small mistakes because her perception is that high. But because they're implemented so poorly, they just seem to randomly exist as the plot needs them. Like I said, after this section, Lex's powers basically vanish once again and kind of just pop up when the author's like, oh yeah, they have powers. She hears this radio go off when no one else does. There we go. Is it important? No. Oh no. It just to remind the reader that she has those powers. Chapter 26 to 30. They finally stumble onto Kane, who's been badly beaten and tortured. They struggle with how they're going to save him because he has massive internal bleeding. Oh, wait. It turns out that the not-at-all force pills that they were given by plot device Hep are a magic panacea that helps heal Kane right up no problem, because regulating oxygen in the blood is the same as fixing internal bleeding by this book's logic. The three prepare to fight their way out, but when things start to look down, all of a sudden Vippy appears. It turns out she was a rebel this entire time and is taking a massive risk to save Lex, even though it's never explained why Vippy likes Lex so much. In fact, even Lex is questioning it by the end. Because of Vippy, they escape. Kane summarily kills Vippy because he's a fucking idiot, reveals that he's a two-timing jackass, and then the two meet up with the rebellion's forces. After they meet up, the leader drops the bombshell that he not only knows their mother, they're in fact twins!
This is quite a shock. On the other hand, it's not surprising in the least.
So, let's go ahead and just talk about the mini plot holes of these collection of chapters. Plot hole 1. Vippy. So, Vippy being here is fine. I do honestly believe they should have established this later. But what the biggest thing that's wrong with this is the book itself acknowledges how Vippy has no reason to go as far as she does to help Lex. Now, Lex herself attributes it to doing one nice thing for her, which was saving her from a bully who accused her of being a rebel after word reached the Academy of a rebel attack in the sky. However, this doesn't make sense because Vippy had already shown at that point that she was trying to get Lex's attention and at least really liked her. At one point, when they're doing that zip ball game, Vippy purposely chose Lex first, despite the fact that Lex is like, a smart person wouldn't have chosen me first. They know Cassina's never going to choose me for their team, so they would have gone for the other people that Cassina would have chosen. In addition, it turns out that she was, in fact, a rebel, and Lex outright threatened to kill her if she found out that the accusation she saved her from was true. Lex has been someone who has kept her promises before and has shown very volatile reactions when wronged. So there is in no way Vippy should think that, oh, if I save her, she'll be appreciative of me and like me even more. And furthermore, Olivia does imply that Vippy feels from Vippy that she's in love with Lex and deeply admires her, but doesn't tell Lex because it would only make her feel more guilty because she doesn't understand how people work. The problem is this doesn't work because we never see this in action. Vippy is treated in a very detached way by Lex, who even from the moment the rebel is introduced, basically says that the rebel just liked her for some reason. Lex never treats Vippy nicely, often internally derides her for being an idiot, even in the scenarios where Vippy is clearly trying to be friendly with her. And their longest interaction ends with Lex threatening to kill Vippy if it turns out Vippy was a rebel. In addition, at no point do we see why Vippy liked her. We just get, early in the chapters, and there's this girl Vippy who followed me everywhere. Kane called her my shadow. I don't know why. But even beyond that, because we never see the training Lex goes through and get at best boring snapshots of her life, we never see the things that could even let us infer Vippy developed a crush on her. I bring up Micah because there's at least several things where I'd be like, okay, that makes sense because that's clearly, oh, I have a crush on this person. Whereas Vippy just comes off like a friend trying to defend someone she likes from a bully in several of the scenes she's in. Plot hole number 2. Why is Kane being interrogated? Kane was sent in by the Indrithian government to kill Livia, but for unknown reasons. While it makes sense that they would beat him in front of the guests to maintain illusions, what's the reason they would follow up by effectively torturing him for information? They would already know that he was sent there on a mission to kill her by them, so it's just safer to kill him outright and get it over with rather than maintaining the illusion, especially as he's likely to turn against you now that you betrayed him. If they want to maintain the illusion, then just put him in the most severe torture you have, and say he died during it, or just ignore him for a bit because he's already bleeding very heavily internally. So what's with this whole, let's put him in a room where it drops to like 30 degrees, like it drops to 0 degrees Celsius and shoots up to 110 degrees. Climate torture, I think he calls it. Or, my bad, he calls it climate interrogation. Oh, plot hole number 3. How closely exactly are people surveilled in this world? The book keeps flip-flopping on how much of a security state Indra really is. The Book of Indra is undoubtedly one of the most restrictive things in the world. We repeatedly see instances where it's like, oh, you must be a proper young woman, you can't have kids past this age, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this. If you have twins, you can keep one and we'll take the other to perform horrible experiments on. You can't have more than one kid at all. You can't adopt. But there are several instances where the book implies Indra, the government is basically constantly watching with various surveillance methods. After all, how else would they know if the genetic nature of the child is your own? And it's also revealed later on that they're tracking Lex and suppressing her emotions with the implant. Talk about that later. Despite that fact, the book presents several instances where the surveillance seems non-existent. Vippy's betrayal, for one. Even in the case that they aren't monitoring the brain waves, why wouldn't they have cameras that would show Vippy basically taking out her entire squad to save them? And there's a lot of other small instances like this. Plot hole number 4. Lex flip-flops wildly in this chapter. Her opinion on the social hierarchy is in flux. She hates poor people, but now she hates rich people too. So who exactly does she like? Her meeting with the rebels is all sorts of everywhere. Vippy flat out told us she's got people who help who are rebels, and yet Lex treats them incredibly hostilely. She threatens to even kill one of them because she feels slighted, very minorly slighted. But then again, then can't understand later why that same guy has negative feelings about her. Don't appreciate us breathing your air, Islander? Asked the shaggy hair one. I'd rather you not breathe any of it, I say. Him and me, we've come to an impasse. I meant what I said. I don't do overly friendly strangers. Livia retrieves my blaster for me. If these rebels are willing to show us the way out, let's do the logical thing and follow them for now. A kindness was repaid, so now a kindness is done. Shaggy nods. It's good to see someone carries the intelligence gene. I jam my blaster hard in his guts, and his men crowd me. If you're so interested in genetics, I could give you a real good look at your insides. Now, context of that scene is Lex immediately drew her gun and tried to shoot him upon first seeing him. And then threatens to blow his guts out because she feels slighted. But later on, when he's mean to her, she's like, wow, you just want everyone to be as unhappy as you are, huh? No, maybe it has something to do with the fact you literally threatened to fucking shoot his stomach out because you felt slightly annoyed. Another example is this. Lex somehow doesn't understand why someone is nice to her, yet is also completely understanding of why Kane is nice to her, and why these people are nice to her, why these people act this way. Plot hole 5. The book forgets about Lex's history. At one point, Xavier, who is the shaggy-haired guy I mentioned, claims that Lex is a hard-case cadet who likes rules and regulation and will listen to orders without question, and kill without mercy. Except that doesn't make any sense. Not only did Lex literally go AWOL on her first day as an actual Spec Ops soldier, she has a long history of insubordination by Indrithian standards. Now, while you could argue that this is Xavier's perception of her, it doesn't make sense that he wouldn't know this, but he also somehow knows she was the person on Overwatch during the one op she did as a rock bottom patrol. And for some reason, he doesn't blame O or C, who actually pulled the trigger on that transport that they are rushing, but blames Lex, who just warned them of the craft approaching them and wasn't even supposed to do that. As far as he should be aware, She was literally just watching the camera feeds, and he's like, she's got to die too. Because my friend or my boyfriend was on that. Book's never clear on that. There's also a couple minor issues in this section. There's like the fact that Kane basically kills Vippy. So, here. I stun her mid-sentence and drop the sizzling blaster next to her body. Central Command will have questions for her. Probably put this entire squad on leave to suss out what exactly happened. But this will help sell the narrative she's not to blame. Only I am. Somehow, everything I touch goes to hell. A couple paragraphs later, Kane grins. Oh, not even a couple paragraphs later. It's literally next chapter, but like 3 sentences down. Kane grins as he catches up to us. We got about 5 minutes till backup comes. And the guys back there, asked Lex. Don't worry about them. They'll have to thaw first. Thaw, I say? Lex is already smiling, as though they're speaking a language all their own. He activated the climate control, she says. They're going to be frozen solid. So, even if this book is trying to say that, like, it's not actually going to freeze them solid, Kane literally turned down the temperature to the point that they're going to get icy while they're all knocked out. So, does no one realize how bad hypothermia is in this world? There's another small point here on page 254, which I found funny. Because of this small thing, it also invalidates one of the few times that they try to show casually that Lex has powers. Lex picks up the buzzing sound before everyone else, and she looks sharply at the rebel from when it comes. He stares back at her confused, until he can hear it too, and is embarrassed. So, this is told from Livia's point of view. So if only Lex can hear it, how does Livia know what Lex is reacting to before anyone else can hear it? Then there's also the fact that Xavier is demonized by Livia for goading Lex, despite the fact that Lex literally threatened to kill him a few pages earlier. And Livia should be able to sense how angry he is, considering he feels she murdered a close friend of his. There's also this particular scene, which I love. I say love a lot sarcastically, and it's going to lose all meaning by the end of this review. I start blasting as soon as we round the corner. My shots don't hit anyone, but they distract the PCF long enough for the rebels to draw down. I've evened the odds, but I still wouldn't call it a fair fight. Every rebel casualty will depend on my head, so no one else is dying just yet. We're only just beginning to strike back. Xavier steers with one hand, shoots with the other. He curses. I'd curse too if I were that bad of a shot. You missed every shot.
Good thing bad guys are such terrible shots.
Man, these guys are elusive.
You literally say you missed every single shot. And you had the advantage because the PCF didn't know you were looking at them yet. Didn't know you knew they were there. So, arguably, you're a worse shot than he is. Chapter 31 to 35. After the revelation that they're twins, the two spend some time absorbing that. Lex, who lived as a dirt-poor orphan with no friends and a constant threat of death hanging over her head if she didn't make herself useful to their society, feels some anger at the fact that she assumes their parents chose to keep Livia over her. But Livia is sure to remind her that living as one of the richest people in this society, never struggling for food, water, and, while not perfect, having something of an adopted family at home, at the very least, was just as bad as being a dirt-poor orphan because she was put through etiquette lessons and expected to be prim and proper.
Brittany used to have a Gulfstream 4. Now she's had to sell it and get a Gulfstream 3 because people like you chose to download her music for free.
The next chapter, they walk to a rebel outpost. The leader of the rebel talks a bit about books. Chapter 33, they get to the location. The story reveals that Samantha, the orphan girl from the very beginning who helped Lex, is actually alive. And the big twist of them using the chips implanted in their brains to record their memories is actually being used to spy on them. Chapter 34, this is the surgery to remove the brain chip. For some reasons, they choose not to remove Livia's as well, because I guess for some reason, if it's only operating at 20% power, that somehow means they're not using enough power to track them. But we also learn that the chip is also suppressing the emotions in the Lex, and then it's removed. After the surgery, the group sits around for a bit, talks a bit, and then decides it's time to go. All things considered, despite the fact there's about five chapters, it's fairly light in complaints. So let's just quickly go through the resident plot holes in this section. So this one's a rather small one here, but I particularly like this. I look at this uppity girl across from me. This, by the way, this is from Lex's point of view. This is very important. I look at this uppity girl across from me. She wears gowns and says, perhaps. She has a singing sword on her own island and a creature that shouldn't exist. We are nothing alike. She acts like she's different from everyone else around her, like somehow she's special. Okay, maybe we're a little like. Except, throughout the entire book, and after this, Lex never shows this level of self-awareness ever again. So they basically violate their own characters to tell a not that funny joke. Plot hole 2, page 318. Since you took that thing out of my head, something's different, as is normal. By placing a chip in that certain location of your cortex, the IHC believes they can control certain emotions, like joy, and can then release the amount they deem fitting. They really control how much joy I feel. They control pain in the same manner. Now, Livia has already felt those emotions, so have you, Lex, just to a lesser degree. So, again, they reveal that this chip is suppressing emotions. Yet at the same time, they also kind of reveal that, but it doesn't make much sense because you never get the sense that Livia has emotions that are suppressed. Now, the book only labels joy and pain as it, but Livia has shown pain before, and 2, it comments emotions, not just emotion, because pain isn't an emotion, pain is a feeling. So it implies that they're just suppressing emotions all around. They don't seem fitting for society, which in one case would be sadness, anger, all that kind of thing.
It is very dangerous to put your hands outside the windows of the train.
Arthur, where are you? Arthur! Where did you go? Arthur!
I should just take my joy, shouldn't I?
But Lex is by far the more emotional of the two. It would make more sense if Livia had her emotions suppressed while Lex was being tracked. We also know Lex can clearly feel sadness because one of her responses about finding out Liv is her twin is despair over the fact that their parents chose to keep Livia over Lex. So this doesn't make a lot of sense. There's also a small contrivance here. The book suddenly says that Xavier and Samantha are brother and sister. This is not in any way earned, but it also makes no sense. Like, how do they know they're related? If Samantha was in the orphanage and Xavier was also implied to be an orphan, there's in no way they can know they're related, because this is a world where these two people can get a quick DNA test. Oh, you're my sibling. Second, how did they possibly find each other? Neither actually knew the other existed based on some of the comments they make, and Samantha didn't leave to find her sibling. She left because she was trying to figure out why everyone was getting sent to rock bottom as punishment. And why specifically did they have to be brother and sister? I honestly think it would have made much more sense if they just said that Samantha was the girlfriend of Xavier rather than siblings. In the long run, it doesn't matter much because Xavier's and Samantha's sibling relationship doesn't make any impact in the story. Other than that, there's just one minor issue. Like, okay, we might as well just talk about the Book of Indra real quick. So the Book of Indra is introduced as a concept of just the only physical book that exists within the world. And why? The Book of Indra is just basically a law book that everyone's expected to carry around. But it's also considered standard to decorate it and make it your own unique thing. It doesn't make sense. If it's just a law book, why do people need to carry it? Why do you want to decorate it? Why do you want them to use this as an expression of their personality, when in reality it's a book that talks all about how you need to conform? If anything, defacement of the Book of Indra would be more logical because, again, this book is all about you need to conform to our society. And, again, it doesn't make sense why the Book of Indra is the only thing they decided to keep as physical books. And they basically banned every other book. Why not just keep the Book of Indra as also a hollow book as well? Again, you can monitor people doing it. You don't need to... You can keep the thing about conformity. Doesn't mean that people don't need to, have it. I mean, it even turns out that if you're an orphan, they don't really give a shit if you have one or not. So, and those are the people most likely to break the law. So, what is the point of the Book of Indra? There is no point that the Book of Indra exists. The Book of Indra just exists to exist. All remaining... Let's just go ahead and quickly blitz through the synopsis for all the remaining chapters, which is 36 to 44. Chapter 36, the rebels continue to their outpost. Lex get caught by a Lieutenant Hauser. If you don't recognize the name, I don't blame you, because he was mentioned very briefly at the start of the book, and that's about it. And she's accused of being a traitor by him. Despite the fact that she is a traitor, and the fact that she now has personal connections to the rebels that she would want to keep safe, she offers to lead him to the rebel base and tells him exactly what they're planning. So, by chapter 37 opens up with Lex convincing Hauser she's in fact serious about helping him. Hauser lets her go, and then the group is attacked by mutant monsters out of nowhere. Why? Who knows? They just show up so they can kill Samantha, and everyone can be sad for a little bit. Chapter 38. During the attack, Lex tries to use the distraction to kill Hauser, apparently lying to both us and herself in the earlier chapter, despite the fact, again, it was from the first-person point of view, so we should have known this was her plan. Somehow Hauser manages to steal only her... Somehow Hauser managed to steal a clip from her gun without her noticing. She tries to kill him, and then she realizes Samantha's dead. But once, the story does let us experience the loss through the character's eyes, though, so I'll give it that credit. Chapter 39. They link back up with the rebels. Xavier learns of Samantha's death and drops the bombshell that she was his sister. Chapter 40. They travel to the rebels' base. Chapter 41. The two decide to take a jaunt through their father's memories to see how they were conceived, and we get the information that the chips were supposed to be suppressing emotions. Also, Kane and Livia apparently decide at this point that Lex doesn't matter, and they're just going to openly flirt in front of her without care, completely ignoring how she feels. Livia even flat out saying she no longer cares what Lex thinks she's taking Kane. We see their parents. Apparently their mother couldn't conceive naturally, so their father reinvents IVF. And for some reason gives her mother twins instead of just one kid, despite it being against the law. There's a brief break. They go back into the memories. We see the twins born. We see that Lex was in fact right earlier, and that her parents chose to give Livia the nice life over her. And then we get some kind of cryptic hint that their parents went off to do something and left them both orphans. Chapter 44. The PCF shows up at the rebel base and attack. Apparently Hauser, a massive giant guy, followed the paranoid rebels without being seen at all, despite the fact that one of them has the power to sense emotions, and the other one has the power to that has supernatural hearing, but whatever. We also will learn that apparently all the area around Indra is supposed to be uninhabitable, and Indra exists in the one pocket that still has life. Except that's not really true. I just wish it was established earlier. And that the leader of the rebels wants the twins to go and find it, where he believes their mother went and is waiting for them. And he also believes that the twins are the ability to take back Indra because their founders were twins after all, which would work better if we didn't already know the truth behind. I'll get into that. So let's go ahead and just get the rest of the problems of this book out of the way. Let's start with how he's a two-timing jackass. He's known Lex for years, and he knows how she feels because he did kiss her and admitted that, he wants to kiss someone he cares about. So even from my point of view, he's basically toying with her emotions if he never actually meant that. He's known he's known Livia for about, let's be generous and say 3 weeks, or as the book continues to insist, 2 weeks, where he was planning to kill her for most of it. And it was by watching her from rigging underneath her island that he somehow decides she's the girl for him. But honestly, Livia comes off as much worse of the two because of her utter disregard of Lex's feelings. She determines that she'll steal Kane no matter what Lex feels about him. And then in the next few pages, she turns to Lex to comfort her because she remembers Lex's dead friend. But listen to this very scene. Next to me, Livia is breathing faster. She's as stunned as I am. Lex! Livia! Kane flags us down and leaves the air to join us. I was worried. I'm fine, Livia says. We're both okay. I lost you, and then I heard there were mutations and I didn't know if... Look at me, she says, holding up her hands for him to see. In one piece. His panic turns to relief. Then something else. An expression I've never seen. Not even for me. He takes her hands and she squeezes him back. Fury bubbles inside me. My face is hot with it. He's mine. I think. Kane belongs to me. Who are you to just come in and snatch him? Kane, this is from Livia's point of view. Kane is Lex's friend. I know that. And yet I've reached for him because that is exactly what I wanted to do. I held his hand. And if she wasn't there, I would have done more. She's my sister. But she won't dictate my actions. I've spent a lifetime having others tell me how to live. And now that lifetime is over, I feel Kane's eyes on me. I'm not shy about looking at him either. However, it's going to be hard to ignore Lex at this very moment. She's standing there with her hands on her hips. But then, a few pages later, of course this is not possible. I know they would still be there in my dreams, overtaking me. The faces have fallen on both sides. Hep, Durley, Jefferson, the dead PCF, Zinga cutting through his chest, sprawling beneath the hollow image of my father. Samantha, I reminded of their sacrifice. I turned to Lex for comfort, and that's when I see she sees the books. I'm gonna steal your boyfriend. Oh, but now I'm sad. Comfort me. Isn't that just fucking wild, you know? Oh my god. It makes them come off as bad because we've seen a lot more of the bonding of Lex and Livia. We've seen a lot more of the bonding of Lex and Kane than we have of Livia and Kane. In fact, here, I'm just going to read something I wrote down in my notes about this whole scenario here, so I can sum it down really easily. You know, Livia's crush on Kane doesn't make sense. She knew him less than an afternoon, and he tried to kill her at the end of it. And now she's willing to destroy the starting relationship with her newly discovered sister over his affections. Affections that she knew she had before they even went to save her. The problem is, as an audience member, this isn't sympathetic at all. We already know how much Kane means to Lex, and we know why. We've seen she's literally ruined her life to try and save him from the Indra government. So watching as both Kane and Livia completely disregard her feelings makes me mad. Because neither of them seem to care about her feelings in it. Again, she's ruined her life to save Kane. And both of them are like, that's nice. However, I'm going to go shack up with this person. Livia comes off as the worst of the two because she can clearly feel how much Lex loves Kane. In fact, Kane, you can at least argue, is a dumb idiot who doesn't realize that Lex loves him. But Livia, she knows Lex loves Kane. And she still's like, he's mine. I knew him for an afternoon, which is more than you ever knew him for all those years you trained with him. There's also a brief moment where the characters have a strange anti-birth control stance, where they condemn their father for creating the X2 pill, which, as far as we know in this book, is just a birth control pill. And of the various, I'll be honest, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say, of the various awful policies that have been introduced by the Indra's government in this book, the child limit is by far the only one that has a logical reasoning behind it than for the evil. Because Indra is a society living on scarce resources and can only support so many people at once. So they need to... It's a lot like condemning the Quarians in Mass Effect for having more than one child. Because in reality, the reason they don't have more than one child is they simply can't support it with their resources. In the end, we get to the epilogue. They take the back way out of the rebel outpost and emerge in the new world as twins. Oh, yeah. I guess let me quickly comment on that before I say it's over. So, the twin stuff. The twin stuff is clearly meant to have a thematic through line, and this is kind of why I said at the very beginning of this long-ass book review series I just did, that we probably shouldn't have gotten the prologue, because the book ends with the idea that it's revealed that Andrew and Atros were actually twins, and by the nature of their history, they founded the city of Indra together. Therefore, it stands to reason to the people in this book that a pair of twins would be able to return Indra to the glory that it used to be. Except because we were given that prologue, we already know that's a false history. We know that this was based on betrayal of a twin rather than the common goal of two twins. So we're not basing this on a history that makes sense. We're basing this on a false history that we already know is fake. And the characters never at one point comment on over the book. We don't see them tell the story of Andrew and Atros. In fact, this is actually probably the first time the history of twins is ever mentioned. Because without that prologue, I gotta be honest with you, I don't know how Indra would have been founded. But yeah, with that, it's over. It's finally over. Look, honestly, this book sucked. And if I couldn't make you understand why it sucked after what is probably 3+ hours of video, There's nothing else I can say in this conclusion that will change your mind. It's terribly written. The book seems to introduce things as needed rather than if it was following a plan. And it either painfully forgets or underutilizes a few decent concepts that it did have. Follow that up with the abysmal writing, and it's just a terrible book all around. I don't recommend this book in any way, not even really as a hate read, because it genuinely feels that terrible to consume. It doesn't feel like anyone behind the book actually wanted to write it. Nothing from actually putting the words to page to even being excited about the world or the concept of the world that they have. Even suggesting they did it just because they realized all the other cool kids on the block were releasing their own YA books feels wrong, because I think even then I would have felt a little bit more passion and love put into this work than there was. This genuinely feels like if this was released nowadays, they would have just written with an AI writer. Because of that, this book has the honor of being the very first 2 out of 10.
It's awful!
So ratings of 1 and 2 are extraordinarily rare for me because while I know they must exist somewhere out there, and I have read my fair share of terrible books, I've never thought I would actually read a book that are that bereft of positives. What few small good ideas that this book does have are quickly squashed by its wholly unoriginal and nonsensical plot and world. It technically is a book, and that's about all I can say about it in terms of positives. At least it isn't a 1 where I wonder how anyone could mistake it for a book. I hope I never run into one of those. That being said, just remember, with every book comes an adventure, and every adventure is worth having. Okay, maybe not.